Well, I thought it would be really interesting to compare three Thinline Bibles that I have here. And I thought it would be good because you could see these three excellent publishers and what they're putting out and how they're very comparable to each other in terms of the quality of what they're putting out. But I just thought it would be neat for you to see a little bit of the uniqueness of each company, what they're producing, and then maybe just kind of give my thoughts on which one might edge out the others a little bit overall in terms of its features in relationship to its price point. So one is a Crossway, which is the ESV. Then we have a Thomas Nelson NKJV. And then we have a Holman Christian Standard Bible. And I love all of these publishers, and I love each of these translations. They're really good. So, I mean, I guess what I want to say right off the bat is they're all good. They really are. This one here, the ESV large print thin line, is a genuine leather, so it has a higher price point. It actually retails at $59.99, which is pretty expensive. However, you can get these really often for $30 to $35 probably. Really, they're quite affordable for a genuine leather cover. Whereas these two here, I just want to be up front, these are synthetic leather covers, so they are going to have a lower price point. But that's probably the main reason. I would think that the ESV synthetic covers would sell for a similar price as these. This one is $19.99 for the Youth Edition thin line. And the Holman, they call theirs ultra thin. Same idea, but I guess ultra thin just sounds a little bit, just sticks out. It's ultra thin, right? Almost like a superhero Bible. Ultra thin. And this is $29.99 retail price for this Bible. So we're not exactly comparing apples to apples because one is the genuine leather. This is a youth edition. This is just a standard thin line. So they're all a little bit different price point. I would imagine, though, you can get each of these Bibles for the $20 to $30 range. I'll just put that out there. You can look it up, but each of these is going to be in the $20 to $30 range. This is a nicer cover, at least in terms of it being genuine leather. The boxes, just to compare that right off the bat, this has a clamshell box. This has more of a slip cover case for the youth edition. And this has the two-piece box. And I would say, comparing these three, my favorite is this one, just in terms of the overall look and feel of it. I really like this. It has a smooth feel to it, but the design on the Christian Standard Bible, I just think they're knocking it out of the park. This looks nice, and I would imagine their regular thin line Bibles might look a little bit different. I still think it looks nice though. And then this here is a clamshell box that ESV does for this edition. So it opens like that, closes. That's an easier to use box because it's just so easy to open and close. Then this one I would say is second easiest to use, and this is third easiest to use because it's kind of hard to get the Bible in and out of that. So they're all good for storing the Bibles, but these two are superior, and I actually like the look of this one the best. Now, as you actually get into the Bibles themselves, the covers, again, we're not comparing apples to apples. They each are fulfilling a certain niche market. The genuine leather cover is one option for the ESV, but they also put out covers that are similar to these Bibles here. This is I think called a leather touch, and I think this is also a leather touch Bible. They each have their names for their synthetic leather covers. So I'm not sure what... this one here is actually called Leather Soft, which when you see leather next to another word, it means it's not real leather, just so you know. This is actually genuine leather. They're all paste down liners on the inside, not edge lined. This one here, when you get into the Bible, again, ESV just has such an elegant look to their Bibles. If you've heard me talk about them, they're put up by Crossway, and this is a large print. The verse numbers themselves are bold, so in its paragraph format, as are all of these. But I would say in terms of kind of a traditional, elegant look, ESV is the best for that. It just really looks like you would want a nice, good-looking Bible to look. There is a good amount of show-through on this paper, and it's kind of thin. But this is a large print. This is a 10-point font. These others that I'm going to show you are 9-point. They're not large print. So when you realize that ESV, the Crossway Bible here, is getting the same footprint for a larger print, that's pretty good. Now, the advantage of this Thinline here, the NKJV, first of all, it also has a really good layout. This one is designed by 2K Denmark, and it's called the NKJV Comfort Print. It's a really nice looking print, very bold. But it's a little smaller. It's more of a wider font, not as tall as the ESV and the CSB. And it does allow you, though, to have more room for writing notes in this one. Paper is not as much show-through. It's a little bit better than the ESV in terms of show-through. It's more opaque, so you don't see the words coming through the other side quite as much. That might have to do, though, with the fact that this is not a large print. The ESV is trying to save more space because it's larger print. You can't actually tell the difference in the print too much on the camera in terms of its size, but when you're looking at it, this 10-point is easier to read than this 9-point. But the next one I want to show you, the CSB, I think is really the best of both worlds. For some reason, whatever the 2K Denmark came up with for the CSB, it's a kind of a taller font. So this is also 9-point. But I would say it really reads a little bit more like that 10-point font in the ESV here. They're not the same, but they're pretty comparable in terms of their readability. This one probably would edge it out a little bit. But I would say this maybe has a little bit more show-through than the NKJV, the Nelson Thinline, a little less than the ESV, but it's not noticeable, really. When you're reading it, the show-through is not bad at all. You don't get too much ghosting. So when you kind of compare the printing of them, they're all really good. It really just comes to a matter of preference. But I really do like the fact that for a 9-point font, this is almost as readable as the large print. I think that's pretty impressive. The paper quality on this is not as thin as the ESV, and it's smoother than the Nelson. So again, I don't know what all of their editions are like, but as among these three, I would say this has probably the best paper. Just kind of that balance of it's nice and smooth, but it's not too thin. The ESV is a little bit on the thin side, and the layout probably, in my opinion, edges out the others a little bit too. The NKJV, the only problem I really have with it, I don't think I mentioned it, in the Psalms it's not bad. You've got the verses out to the side here, but the verses are really small numbers. So when you're in the paragraph format, it's hard sometimes to pick out the verses. I don't know how easily, like verse 23 right there, verse 22 right there. It's not as easy as in these other Bibles that have the bolded numbers. Those stand out a little bit more. Maybe it doesn't show up on camera as much, but if I was teaching, I'd prefer this a little bit. Actually, a lot more in terms of being able to pick out the verse numbers. That's better. If you're going to have a paragraph format, I really like to have bold numbers. In terms of their covers, they're all nice. They really are. This one is genuine leather, so it has more of the classic elegant look to it. but it is a rough leather. You have to get more of their high-end Bibles, a top grain leather or a calfskin or something like that, to really get a smooth leather, and that would be wonderful. But then you're going to be paying a lot more. Still, if you want like a really good sturdy cover, that's a good one. But these are good too, and they're a little cheaper. This on the spine has a tooled imprinting so that you can see that looks nice. The ribs there and Holy Bible. This is a youth edition, and so it kind of has a little bit more of a, I don't know. It's not as elegant of a look as the ESV, but I still think it looks awesome. And then this one here, I think the CSB really combines something that's modern looking but still really classy, in my opinion. And that has tooled ribs, but then it has the gold printing for the words. So I'd say it's a step up from this, and probably looks nicer than the ESV, but that has to do with the fact that this is on kind of a coarse leather. Which one will hold up the best? Probably the genuine leather, and then I'm not sure between these two, but this one, I just wonder, maybe it won't hold up quite as well as this, but that's really hard to say. We'll just have to see. And that also has to do with how you're using it, how much you're using it, where you're storing it. Now let's look at ribbons. The ribbon on the ESV is the lowest quality. It's the thinnest, it's single-sided, but it just really kind of has a flimsy feel to it. It's barely long enough. The Nelson, and I would guess this is probably true of their other editions that they're putting out now. If they're putting out ribbons like this on their youth edition, that's a good sign. So, wow, good job, Nelson. Not that I'm a huge ribbon person, but if you do want some good ribbons on your Bible, Nelson seems to be putting out some nice ribbons. And this is only a $20 Bible, and they've got a nice brown one, single-sided satin, and blue single-sided satin, and those are angle cut. And then finally, the ribbon on the CSB, I would put it between these two. There's only one. It is single-sided. The cut on this is probably the worst of all of them, but the ribbon itself is a little bit nicer feel and a little bit longer maybe. Maybe it's about the same, but it's just a little bit nicer than the ESV ribbon, but not as nice as the Nelson NKJV. So let's compare the maps on these Bibles. And the ESV here has a decent amount of maps, I think, as you go through here. I'll give you a look at them so you can see. They have kind of a lighter color pattern to them. And there's Paul's first and second missionary journeys and his final missionary journeys. So they're pretty good in the ESV. In the NKJV, because this is a youth Thinline, I think they might have streamlined the maps a little bit and don't have as many as in some of their other Bibles. I'm not 100% sure of that. It does have the World of the Patriarchs and the Land of the 12 Tribes. They're nice looking maps. They really are nice looking, but I would really like it in this one, in the youth Thinline, if they had Paul's missionary journeys. So that's a brighter color map versus this one here. And then finally in the CSB, we have the migration of Abraham and the route of the Exodus, the allotments of Israel, kingdoms of Judah, Israel in the time of Jesus. So these maps here are colorful and extensive, and so I would say it doesn't have two maps for Paul's journeys like the ESV does. It just has one, but overall, and this is on matte paper, more of the cardstock kind of paper. I would say, again, this Bible probably edges out the others a little bit more with maps. This would be in second, this in third. But again, might make a difference that this is the youth edition. So, they're all good in their own way. They really are. I love Thinline Bibles. I guess the only other thing I maybe could mention is the gilting. The gilting on this one is kind of a lighter gold, but actually that's more on the camera. In person, it's definitely darker than that. Looks nice. This has more of a matte finish. The gold is not as shiny, but it is gold. And that's actually kind of nice. It's not going to show up the marks as much. That's what I like about this particular youth edition. Is I think this is the one that isn't going to be as noticeably aged. Because it's brown and the gold is not as shiny. I think it's going to age better. Then you've got this one. This is the kind of in between, not as shiny as this, shinier than this on the gold gilding. And it's pretty well done. But again, I think when you look at all of the different features, the price point for each of them is going to actually be similar at the end of the day, even though this one retails for the most, then this one, then this one. They're pretty comparable in price. And I would say when you actually look at them all three together, it really depends on what translation you want. And then behind that, maybe the look that you want. But they're all good translations. I mean, really, you can get all of these Bibles for probably altogether $70 or so. 70, somewhere around there. And I would have to say, and of course I'm biased, which translation or which ones I lean toward. I love these two translations. ESV is also excellent. But overall quality of Bible, this newest edition, 2019 CSB Ultra Thin, I'm going to say edges out the others. Just because it looks a little bit nicer on the spine, and the cover is really nice, at least as nice as these. Ribbon, not as nice as the Nelson, but the paper and the layout, I think they knocked it out of the park. For a 9-point font, which is not large, but for this particular font, it's a good size. Pretty readable, and in a thin line. Good footprint, as are the others. I would say this edges out the others just a little bit for the price point. That's a biased opinion, though, but that is what I would say. And so that's a little bit of the battle of the thin lines. However, again, these are three excellent publishers. Holman putting out a great product, Nelson putting out great products, and Crossway, great products as well. I highly recommend any of their products. If you get something like this, you're going to be very happy for what you get for the money that you're spending. So I've said a lot, probably more than I need to, but thank you so much for watching these reviews from a Frisch perspective.